What if everything you've ever believed about the chosen people in the Bible was wrong? Imagine a world where the very foundation of biblical history is questioned, not just by scholars, but by evidence buried in the sands of time, waiting to be uncovered. Ancient Israel was more than a small group of people confined to a narrow strip of land. What if I told you that there were entire communities across Africa, communities that have been dismissed and forgotten, who claim to be the true descendants of Israel, and that their voices have been silenced for centuries? These are the Black Israelites. For generations, African tribes from Ethiopia to Nigeria, from Ghana to Zimbabwe, have maintained ancient traditions passed down orally, claiming descent from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But what if there's more to their story than myth? What if the evidence, hidden in plain sight, proves their heritage is not only real, but ties back to the very origins of Israel? Today, we will explore a revelation that could change everything. DNA studies, archaeological findings, and ancient texts are coming together to reshape how we understand history, identity, and prophecy. Are we ready to face the truth that has been buried for millennia? Can we handle the possibility that the Israelite people may not just be from the Middle East, but from across the African continent as well? In this video, we will dive deep into the archaeological discoveries, examine the texts that have been overlooked, and uncover the shocking evidence that suggests the biblical Israelites weren't just a Middle Eastern people, but a global phenomenon. From the Lemba people of southern Africa to the Beta Israel of Ethiopia, we'll uncover the undeniable connections that link African communities to the ancient Israelites. But what does this mean for us today? How does it change the way we view the Bible, identity, and the powerful, healing message of truth? Keep watching, because what we uncover together will challenge everything you thought you knew. The implications are staggering. This is about more than just history. It's about heritage. It's about justice for communities whose stories have been buried under the weight of time. It's about understanding the fullness of God's plan for humanity. As we delve deeper into the connections between ancient Israel and Africa, it's impossible to ignore the profound impact this discovery could have on how we view our spiritual identity. Many of us have spent our lives reading the Bible, studying its scriptures, and growing in faith. Yet there are truths hidden in the ancient texts and beneath the soil of forgotten lands, waiting to be uncovered. What we're discovering now is more than history. It's a revelation that can heal, restore, and awaken a deeper connection to God's chosen people. When we look at the Lemba people of southern Africa, it's impossible to dismiss the evidence that they are more than just an isolated tribe. These communities, for over 1,000 years, have maintained oral traditions claiming descent from the ancient Israelites. And yet, for years, their claims were ignored. Skeptics wrote off their practices, such as circumcision, kosher dietary restrictions, and the preservation of priestly roles, as nothing more than coincidence. But in the 1990s, when DNA testing began to shed light on these claims, the truth became undeniable. The Lemba's genetic markers, particularly the Cohen modal haplotype, mirrored those of Jewish priestly families from the Middle East. This wasn't just a coincidence. It was a divine affirmation of their ancient heritage. Imagine the weight of this discovery. For centuries, this community lived under the belief that they were the true descendants of Israel, but their heritage was marginalized and their faith dismissed. And yet, their unwavering dedication to preserving their traditions, despite centuries of persecution, displacement, and cultural erasure, has been a testament to the power of ancestral knowledge and divine protection. This is not just an academic finding, it's a profound moment of healing. The Lemba people's story is a story of survival, of faith, and of the remarkable resilience of God's people. This discovery doesn't just vindicate their claims, it restores a sense of dignity and pride that had been denied for far too long. It's a reminder that the past is never truly lost. and sometimes the truth simply needs to be uncovered by those with the courage to search for it. But the Lemba are not alone. Across Africa, from Ethiopia to Nigeria, similar claims are being made. The Beta Israel of Ethiopia, also known as Ethiopian Jews, have maintained their identity for over 2,000 years. Their practices, such as observing the Sabbath, following strict dietary laws, and even performing animal sacrifices, mirror the ancient practices of Israel, making it clear that these people are more than just followers of a foreign faith. They are the descendants of Israel, rooted in the ancient promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's not just about the Lemba or the Beta Israel. The Igbo people of Nigeria, the Agebo people of Ghana, and so many other communities have maintained oral traditions linking them to the lost tribes of Israel. Their stories may differ, but the common thread of divine covenant and identity runs deep in each of these communities. And now, thanks to modern science, we can begin to connect the dots between these ancient claims and the genetic markers that are being discovered in their DNA. The question then arises, why were these connections hidden for so long? Why were these communities' claims dismissed as folklore or fantasy? For years, the dominant narrative told by mainstream Christianity and academia was that the Israelites were a people confined to the Middle East. We were taught that the Jewish people and the ancient Israelites were limited to a small strip of land, and that any claims outside of that narrative were not only improbable, but impossible. But as we look closer at the archaeological findings and the genetic evidence, it becomes clear that this narrow view of Israelite history is not only incomplete, it's fundamentally flawed. The Bible itself contains clues that should have led us to these communities long ago. We know that Moses, the great lawgiver, married a Cushite woman. Cush, of course, is the biblical term for the region we now know as Sudan and Ethiopia. The fact that Moses, the one who received the law directly from God, married a woman from Africa is more than a simple narrative detail. It's a profound reminder that God's plan for his people has always been inclusive, that his covenant extends far beyond the confines of Israel's borders. And yet, for centuries, this connection has been largely ignored. The Book of Acts tells the story of the Ethiopian eunuch, a high-ranking official in the court of Queen Candace, who traveled to Jerusalem to worship and encountered the Apostle Philip. This wasn't just a random encounter. It's a reflection of the deep and ancient ties between Ethiopia and Israel. The Ethiopian eunuch was not a convert or a curious outsider. He was a man who, like many African Jews today, understood his connection to the Israelites and was committed to honoring the God of Israel. And then, there are the prophecies themselves. The Bible speaks of God's scattered people returning from the rivers of Cush, a direct reference to the lands of Africa. In Isaiah we read that, "Princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall soon stretch out her hands unto God." These aren't metaphorical references. These are specific geographical locations and peoples, and they have prophetic significance. God was always planning to gather his people from the four corners of the earth, not just from the land of Israel, but from Africa, from the Americas, from Asia, and beyond. The implications of this discovery are nothing short of revolutionary. The people of Israel were never just confined to one region. They were and are a global people, scattered and preserved throughout the world. The Lemba, the Beta Israel, the Igbo, the Agebo, and countless other communities are part of the tapestry of God's chosen people, and their stories are finally being recognized as an integral part of the biblical narrative. But this isn't just about historical validation or genealogical studies. It's about spiritual restoration. As these communities reconnect with their ancient Israelite heritage, they are not only reclaiming their history, they are rediscovering their divine purpose. For generations, they have been searching for their identity, for a deeper understanding of who they are in God's eyes. And now, through DNA testing, through archaeological discoveries, and through the unearthing of ancient texts, They are finding the answers they've been seeking. This is where the healing begins. For many African communities, the connection to Israel is not just a matter of ancestry, it's a matter of identity. For centuries, they have been marginalized, their voices silenced, and their stories erased. But now, as the evidence mounts, these communities are beginning to reclaim their rightful place in the biblical story. They are no longer just passive recipients of foreign faith. They are the bearers of an ancient covenant, the rightful heirs to the promises made to the patriarchs. The discovery of the Black Israelites is not just a historical revelation, it's a spiritual awakening. As we uncover these truths, we are invited to reflect on our own identities, our own spiritual journeys, and our place in God's plan. This is not just about African heritage, it's about all of us and our connection to the divine purpose that transcends geography, race, and history. In the next part of this journey, we'll dive deeper into the archaeological evidence that further confirms the Israelite presence in Africa. From ancient inscriptions in Sudan to manuscripts in Ethiopian monasteries, the discoveries are telling a powerful story, a story that has been hidden for far too long. Let's continue this exploration together as we uncover more of the truth that will forever change the way we view biblical history and our place in God's kingdom. When we explore the layers of history buried beneath the soil of Africa, it's impossible not to see how these hidden truths are connected to the stories we find in the Bible. The discoveries of ancient inscriptions, artifacts, and texts in regions like Sudan, Ethiopia, and Egypt are not just historical findings. They are pieces of a larger puzzle that connects the ancient Israelites to the African continent in ways that many have overlooked or ignored for centuries. These discoveries not only challenge what we thought we knew about the biblical world, but also reveal a deeper, more profound connection between Africa and Israel, one that speaks of survival, resilience, and divine destiny. The story of the Cushite kingdom in ancient Egypt, which we now know as Sudan and Ethiopia, is one such testament. The Bible repeatedly refers to the kingdom of Cush, a region in Africa often mentioned alongside Egypt in the scriptures. Moses himself, the great lawgiver, married a Cushite woman, which is an event so significant that it's specifically mentioned in the book of Numbers. This wasn't just a casual detail, it was a powerful reminder that the people of Israel were never just confined to the boundaries of the Middle East. God's covenant with Israel extended far beyond the borders of what we traditionally consider the Holy Land. As we read in Numbers 12:1, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married. We realize that this was a matter of some controversy, not because of any wrongdoing, but because of the significance of Moses' union with a woman from a land far removed from Israel. The Cushites were seen as different, yet this difference was part of God's design, showing that his plan for his people was not limited to one ethnicity, but was always meant to embrace the diversity of the nations. This is a foundational truth that has often been overlooked or misunderstood, especially when we see how some have misinterpreted the history of the Israelites as solely a Middle Eastern affair. As we uncover the layers of ancient connections between Israel and Africa, we can look at the incredible discoveries made in the modern era. In 2019, archaeologists working in Sudan uncovered pottery shards bearing Hebrew inscriptions dated to the 8th century BCE. These shards were found along ancient trade routes that connected Israel to the heart of Africa, revealing an extraordinary level of interaction between the two regions. This wasn't a fleeting encounter, it was a lasting and profound connection. The Hebrew inscriptions found on these artifacts tell a story of exile, of Israelite peoples seeking refuge in the land of Cush, a land that was not only a refuge, but a place where they maintained their identity and their covenant with God. These discoveries do not just tell us about ancient trade. They tell us about the migration of people, about the dispersion of God's people across the world, and about how these people preserved their identity in foreign lands. It's a reminder of how God's people, even in exile, never lost their faith and their connection to the divine promises made to their ancestors. This wasn't just about survival. It was about maintaining their identity in the face of adversity. And these ancient inscriptions are a testimony to that enduring faith. We must also consider the ancient manuscripts found in the monasteries of Ethiopia, texts that have been preserved for centuries, often hidden from the world. These manuscripts trace the royal genealogies of Ethiopia back to King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, a narrative that was long dismissed by scholars as legend. But the evidence suggests that these ancient records might be more than just folklore. Carbon dating and linguistic analysis have confirmed that these manuscripts are older than previously thought, and they tell a story that bridges the gap between Africa and Israel in ways we've never fully appreciated. The connections between the Queen of Sheba and Solomon, which we read about in the Bible, are not just the stuff of legend, but part of a larger historical narrative that stretches across continents. What does this tell us about God's plan for his people? It tells us that God's promises to Israel were not meant to be confined to one small land. His promises extended to the ends of the earth, to places like Africa, and to people who, despite being scattered and displaced, never lost their connection to him. These discoveries reveal that Israel was never just a people living in one place, but were always intended to be a global people with connections that spanned continents and generations. The Bible speaks of God gathering his scattered people from the four corners of the earth, and these discoveries are part of that gathering. As we piece together these ancient texts, archaeological findings, and DNA evidence, we begin to see a picture of Israel that is far more complex and far-reaching than we ever imagined. The story of the Black Israelites is not just a story about African peoples. It's a story about the global identity of God's chosen people. It's a story of survival, of faith, and of divine destiny that transcends geographical boundaries and racial lines. These communities, whether in Ethiopia, Sudan, Nigeria, or Southern Africa, are not just part of a distant past. They are part of a living, breathing heritage that continues to thrive today. This revelation also has profound implications for the way we understand biblical prophecy. The Bible speaks of the return of God's scattered people, of a time when those who have been lost for centuries will be brought back to their inheritance. Isaiah 11:11-12 speaks of a time when God will recover the remnant of his people from the four corners of the earth. And this prophecy is not just about the regathering of Jews from Europe or the Middle East. It's about the regathering of God's people from across the world, including Africa, where many of the lost tribes of Israel have remained for millennia. This is not just a future hope, it's a present reality. The evidence we are uncovering is part of that regathering, a regathering that involves not just physical return, but also a spiritual awakening. For these communities, discovering their Israelite heritage is not just an academic pursuit. It's a spiritual journey, a process of reclaiming their identity and their place in the biblical narrative. It's a journey of healing, restoration, and divine fulfillment. For many of these African communities, the recognition of their Israelite heritage is more than just a historical discovery. It's a spiritual awakening. It's a rediscovery of who they are in God's eyes, a restoration of the promises made to their ancestors. This process of reclaiming identity is not just about DNA testing or archaeological digs. It's about the deep spiritual connection that these communities feel to the land of Israel, to the God of Israel, and to the ancient promises that have been passed down through the generations. The prophetic implications are staggering. If the Israelites were indeed scattered across Africa, and if many of these communities have preserved their identity and faith for thousands of years, then we must reconsider how we understand God's plan for the nations. The return of the scattered people is not just a future event. It is happening now. As more and more communities reconnect with their Israelite heritage, we are witnessing a powerful moment of spiritual restoration. This journey of discovery is far from over. As we continue to explore the rich tapestry of Israel's history, we are uncovering more and more evidence that points to a global people, scattered but never lost. The discoveries we are making are not just changing our understanding of the past. They are shaping the future as they bring healing, hope, and restoration to communities that have long been forgotten. The truth is emerging, and it is transforming the way we see the world, the Bible, and the very nature of God's plan for His people. As we continue this journey together, we will explore more of these groundbreaking discoveries, uncovering even deeper layers of truth. The connection between Israel and Africa is a story that has been hidden for too long. But now, through the lens of faith, archaeology, and science, we are beginning to understand just how deeply intertwined these histories truly are. And as we learn from these revelations, we are invited to participate in the ongoing work of restoration, restoring the knowledge of who we are and where we come from, and embracing the divine destiny that awaits us all. The more we uncover about the connection between the Israelites and African communities, the more we see that these links are not just historical curiosities. They are profound spiritual revelations that touch on our deepest understanding of God's plan. The story of these connections has been hidden for millennia, but now the truth is emerging, and it is a truth that carries with it not only historical significance, but also transformative power for those who are willing to see it. The story of the Beta Israel, the Ethiopian Jews, is one of the most remarkable examples of this ancient connection. For over 2,000 years, these communities have maintained a deep, unwavering connection to Israel. They have practiced the ancient rituals, celebrated the Jewish festivals, and preserved their identity through the most difficult circumstances, including centuries of isolation and persecution. They were a people scattered, but never lost, living proof that God's promises endure even when the world around us seeks to erase them. The Beta Israel's practices, observing the Sabbath, following dietary laws, and even performing animal sacrifices, are remarkably similar to the traditions of ancient Israel. These weren't just rituals copied from others. They were traditions passed down through generations, rooted deeply in the people's understanding of who they were and where they came from. Yet for many years their claims to Israelite heritage were dismissed and their practices were viewed with skepticism. It wasn't until the 20th century that the world began to take notice of the Beta Israel, and even then, many were reluctant to recognize their rightful place in the history of God's chosen people. But then, something extraordinary happened. In the 1980s and 90s, the Israeli government officially recognized the Beta Israel as Jewish, and thousands of Ethiopian Jews were brought to Israel in a series of dramatic rescue missions. These operations, named Moses and Solomon, were a recognition of the ancient Israelite identity of the Ethiopian Jews, and they became a powerful testimony to the divine faithfulness that has sustained these communities for centuries. The Ethiopian Jews had for so long been scattered and forgotten by the world, but God had not forgotten them. These stories of recovery and return are not just limited to Ethiopia. The Lemba people of southern Africa, who have long claimed descent from the Israelites, have seen their own remarkable journey unfold. Through DNA testing, it was revealed that the Lemba carry genetic markers that align closely with Jewish priestly families from the Middle East. This was a stunning confirmation of their long-held traditions, and it forced the world to reckon with the fact that Israel's influence extended far beyond its borders. The discovery that the Lemba's priestly class carries the Cohen modal haplotype, the same genetic signature found in Jewish priests around the world, proves that the link between these African communities and ancient Israel is not just spiritual, but biological as well. These revelations are not just about proving ancestral connections. They are about understanding the heart of God's plan for humanity. When we read the Bible, we see that God's plan was always to call people from every nation, tribe, and tongue. Israel was never meant to be a nation of only one ethnicity. The covenant was always about a global people, a diverse people, scattered throughout the earth, brought together under the banner of God's love and truth. The Bible speaks repeatedly of God's plan to gather his scattered people. In the book of Isaiah, we read about the nations bringing their offerings to God's holy mountain. The people of Cush, the very people who were once considered outsiders, are called to participate in God's redemption plan. Princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall soon stretch out her hands unto God. Psalm 68:31. These verses are not metaphorical. They speak of real nations, real peoples, who have always had a place in God's heart. The prophetic scriptures tell us that God's people will be gathered from the four corners of the earth, and these African communities, long overlooked, are a key part of that gathering. We are seeing these prophecies unfold in our own time. The return of the Beta Israel from Ethiopia to Israel is one example, but we are witnessing similar awakenings among other African communities as well. Communities like the Lemba, the Igbo of Nigeria, and the Agebo of Ghana are beginning to reconnect with their Israelite heritage. DNA studies, coupled with oral traditions and religious practices, are confirming what these communities have known for centuries. They are the descendants of Israel. These discoveries are not just a matter of pride or historical accuracy. They are part of a larger spiritual awakening that is reshaping the way we understand the nations and the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. What does all of this mean for us today? It means that we must re-examine the way we understand God's people and the fullness of his plan. For far too long, many of us have viewed the history of Israel through a narrow lens, thinking of it only in terms of the Jewish people in the Middle East. But God's plan was always much broader than that. His covenant with Israel was not just for one small group of people, it was for all nations. The scattered tribes, the lost Israelites, have been preserved throughout the world, and now, in our time, they are being brought back to their rightful place in history. The return of these scattered people is not just a historical event, it is a spiritual event. As these African communities reconnect with their Israelite heritage, they are not simply rediscovering their ancestry. They are reconnecting with the divine promises that were made to their ancestors. They are reclaiming their spiritual identity and the calling that God placed on their lives from the very beginning. This process of spiritual restoration is not just for them, it is for all of us. As we witness the awakening of these communities, we are reminded that we too have a part to play in God's plan. We are all part of the same family, the same covenant, and the same mission. There is a deeper lesson here for all of us. It is a lesson about the power of identity and the importance of knowing who we are in God's eyes. For these African communities, reconnecting with their Israelite heritage has been a powerful act of healing. It has restored their dignity, their purpose, and their connection to the God of Israel. It has shown them that they are not forgotten, and they are not lost. And for all of us, this is a powerful reminder that our identities too are rooted in something far deeper than we often realize. We are part of a larger story, a divine story that spans the globe and touches every nation, tribe, and tongue. As we move forward in this journey, we must remember that the return of the lost tribes is not just a future event, it is a present reality. God is gathering his people from the four corners of the earth, and we are witnessing the fulfillment of his promises right before our eyes. We are seeing prophecies fulfilled, and we are seeing the healing and restoration of communities that have long been forgotten. The restoration of the Black Israelites is a powerful testimony to God's faithfulness and his love for all his people, no matter where they are, no matter their background, no matter the distance that has separated them from their roots. As we continue to explore these discoveries, and uncover the truth about Israel's global presence, let us be reminded that we are all part of this divine story. Let us embrace the fullness of God's plan for humanity, and let us honor the diverse and beautiful ways in which He has worked throughout history to gather His people. The restoration has begun, and it is a story that will continue to unfold in ways that will change the world. And as we witness it, let us remember to celebrate the rich tapestry of God's people, for in His eyes we are all one, and He is gathering us together to fulfill His ultimate purpose. As we stand at the crossroads of history, spirituality, and identity, the truth we've uncovered together is undeniable. The connections between the biblical Israelites and the African diaspora are far deeper and more profound than we've been led to believe. This isn't just a matter of archaeology or genetics, it's about the soul of a people, scattered for millennia, now being brought home. It's a testament to the resilience of communities who have carried the ancient promises of Israel through centuries of adversity, persecution, and displacement. The Lemba, the Beta Israel, the Igbo, and countless other African communities have maintained their connection to the ancient Israelites, despite the world's best efforts to silence their stories. For too long, these voices were dismissed as myths or ignored as historical anomalies. But now, with the help of modern science, archaeology, and ancient texts, the truth is emerging. These communities are not only part of the biblical story, they are integral to it. The scattered tribes of Israel, preserved across the globe, are now awakening to their true heritage, reconnecting with the divine promises made to their ancestors. This is not just about historical discovery. This is about spiritual awakening. It is about healing the deep wounds of forgotten identities and restoring the connection that God has always intended for His people. As we reflect on these discoveries, we are reminded of the power of faith and the incredible strength that can come from knowing who we are in God's eyes. For the Beta Israel, the Lemba, and others, rediscovering their Israelite heritage isn't just an academic pursuit. It's a spiritual journey of reclaiming the promises made by God, promises of a land, a people, and a future. For them, these discoveries are not just intellectual. They are personal, deep, and transformative. They are the fulfillment of the divine covenant that has been passed down through the generations. And as we connect with these stories, we too are invited to examine our own spiritual journeys. How often do we forget the depths of our own identity? How often do we let the distractions of life obscure our true calling, our true purpose? These discoveries remind us that our heritage is far more complex and far-reaching than we often realize. It is global, it is diverse, and it is rooted in the promises of God that transcend time and space. We are all part of this grand, divine story. We are all part of this great sacred tapestry that stretches across the globe, linking us all in ways that we may not yet fully understand. It's not just about understanding the past. It's about how we, as people of faith, can move forward in the present. These discoveries are a wake-up call for the body of Christ, reminding us that God's kingdom is not limited by borders, by race, or by history. His love transcends these human divisions, and He is calling His people from every corner of the earth to come together in unity, to restore what has been lost, and to fulfill the divine destiny that He has planned for all of us. We are living in a time of awakening, a time when the scattered people of God are beginning to come home, and it is a moment of incredible spiritual significance. As we witness this, we are called to reflect on our own faith and our own journey. We must remember that God's promises are for all of His people, regardless of where we come from or what our ancestors believed. Just as the Israelites were scattered to the farthest corners of the earth, God has promised to gather us from every nation, tribe, and tongue. The awakening of these African communities is just the beginning of a much larger story. As we continue to see the fulfillment of these prophecies, we must remember that we are all part of this divine gathering. We are all part of this great restoration. I want to take a moment to thank you for walking this journey with me. If this video has brought you any insight, any healing, or any new understanding of God's plan, I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your voice matters, your story matters, and by sharing it, we help create a ripple effect that spreads far and wide, helping others to see the truth that is now coming to light. If you feel that this message resonates with your heart, that it's helped bring clarity or light in a time of uncertainty, I invite you to support this channel with a little energy of your own. Every comment, every like, every subscription, no matter how small, is an invaluable contribution to the ongoing work of sharing these powerful messages. Your support keeps this journey going, and it empowers me to continue bringing you videos that explore God's Word, His promises, and His plan for the nations. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time, your support, and your openness to these revelations. Together, we are part of something much bigger than ourselves. We are part of the unfolding story of restoration, a story that will ultimately bring all of God's scattered people back to Him. As we continue on this path of discovery, may we all be blessed with the understanding and strength to embrace the truth that is being revealed in this generation. If you have found this content valuable, I encourage you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone who might benefit from this message. Let's continue to spread the light of God's truth across the world. Thank you for your unwavering support, and may you continue to walk in the peace and love that only He can provide.